Ukrayna Savaşı ilk haftayı geride bıraktı. Savaş, Ukrayna'da kan, gözyaşı ve acıyla insanlığı yok ederken patlayan her bomba dünya genelinde özgürlükleri de yok ediyor. Rusya'da savaş karşıtlarına, Batı'da ise sanattan spora, her alanda Ruslara karşı cadı avı başlamış durumda. Moskova yönetimi savaşı eleştiren radyo ve televizyon kanallarını kapatırken barış isteyen hak örgütlerine baskın düzenlendi. İtalya'da ise bir üniversitede Dostoyevski dersi kaldırıldı. Avrupa Birliği Rus medya kuruluşlarını yasakladı. Twitter, Sputnik çalışanı gazetecileri fişledi. Rusya'da aynısını batılı medya organlarına yaptı. Ve bu liste böyle uzuyor gidiyor. Biz yine ayaklarımızın bastığı topraklara dönelim. Buyurun bizim gözümüzden geride kaldığımız haftanın ifade özgürlüğü gündemi.
A lawsuit was filed against 7 university students due to the statement made by them in Izmir on September 28th after organizing protests across the country by saying we cannot find shelter due to the high rent prices and insufficient number of dormitories. The students are charged with violating the law on meetings and demonstrations number 2911 and damaging public property by acting in unison of ideas and actions. Their trial will begin on April 29th at the Izmir 52nd Criminal Court of First Instance.
The indictment prepared by Mardin Chief Public Prosecutor's Office against a citizen named Zilan Ö on the charge of making propaganda for a terrorist organization due to a photograph and a drawing shared on her social media account was accepted by the Mardin Second Assize Court. In the shared photograph, which is the subject of the accusation, a Yazidi woman is seen with a gun on her back and a child in her arms. In the drawing, a Mexican native woman is depicted with a gun on her back and a Molotov cocktail in her hand. The prosecutor's office claimed that both of the posts represented militant PKK members.
The Ankara Chief Public Prosecutor's Office filed a lawsuit against former People's Democratic Party parliament member Altan Tan for making propaganda for a terrorist organization, demanding up to 5 years in prison. In the indictment, which was accepted by the Ankara 21st Assize Court, Tan is charged for speaking in a television program he attended on March 22, 2021.
A lawsuit was filed against Republican People's Party Diyarbakır Provincial Deputy Chairman Mahmut Aziz Uysal for allegedly insulting the president due to a cartoon he shared on a social media account in 2018. Uysal had shared on a social media account the 3 strongest mustaches in history, made millions laugh, killed millions, took millions.
An investigation has been launched against journalist Ferhat Parlak for his article titled "A Child Returned from Death in Silvan," which he wrote about the injury of a child by falling into a sewer pit without a cover in the Silvan district of Diyarbakır. The journalist is accused of insulting and targeting within the scope of the investigation launched upon the complaint of Murat Öztürk, who was appointed as a trustee to the Silvan municipality.
Hakkari Yüksekova Chief Public Prosecutor's Office launched an investigation against Jin News reporter journalist Rabia Önver. Within the scope of the file, the journalist is accused for her social media posts, including the Roboski massacre and the commemoration of the assassinated Diyarbakır Bar Association President Tahir Elçi.
The February 2022 report, prepared within the scope of the Cost of News project, carried out with the support of the Journalists Association, has been launched. At least 108 journalists and media workers were tried with claims of imprisonment for up to 1,485 years in 39 separate hearings held over a 1-month period. In the resulting cases, 5 journalists were sentenced to 15 years, 8 months and 22 days in prison and a fine of 7,080 Turkish liras. A journalist was also ordered to pay 12,500 Turkish liras for non-pecuniary damages. Attacks and threats increased as well in February. A journalist lost his life as a result of an attack against him. 8 journalists faced threats, attacks and beatings. 3 journalists were arrested and 6 journalists were detained in 1 month.
A lawsuit of closure has been filed against the Religious Scholars Aid and Solidarity Association, DIDAT, whose members and administrators were previously arrested for giving sermons in Kurdish on charges of terrorist organization membership and aiding a terrorist organization. Claiming the closure of the association, the prosecutor claimed that the executives of the association wrote columns encouraging to disrupt the indivisible integrity of Turkey and cited the columns as a reason for the association's closure.
The appeal of Evrensel Daily editor-in-chief Cem Şimşek, who was sentenced to 11 months and 22 days in prison for insulting Erdogan due to the news, titled "German Cartoonist Drew Erdogan So Bad," published in 2015, was denied.
In February, the Coalition of Women in Journalism published its report, which compiled rights violations against female journalists. According to the report, last month, 33 female journalists around the world were subjected to violence, intimidation, and harassment. According to the report, at least 19 female journalists have been subjected to violence and harassment regarding their professional activities in Turkey, which is ranked first among the countries with the highest number of cases.
Two separate lawsuits have been filed against the Tarlabaşı Community Center, which has been working to resolve the social and economic problems of the residents of Tarlabaşı since 2006, but has recently been the target of ethnic discrimination and anti-LGBTQ+ smear campaigns. The Istanbul Chief Public Prosecutor's Office filed a lawsuit at the Istanbul 18th Civil Court of First Instance for the closure of the association, which was targeted in pro-government media outlets on the grounds of opposing the law and morality. The first hearing of the case, in which the prosecutor's office's request for an injunction was accepted, will be held on May 18th. In addition, a lawsuit was filed against the association by the Istanbul Governorate at the 8th Civil Court of Peace, demanding that it be determined that the association was automatically terminated on the grounds that the realization of the purpose of the association has become impossible. The first hearing of this case will be held on April 14th.
The protest ban implemented in Van since 2016 is maintained by the government. One government declared another decree and the pretext of providing national security. Demonstrations and open-air gatherings were prohibited for 15 more days, starting on February 28, and all kinds of protests and activities such as press releases and distribution of leaflets were also subjected to permission by the civil administration.
13 new memoranda arrived at the Parliament against 11 Parliament members, including those from the People's Democratic Party, Turkey Workers' Party, and Republican People's Party.
The conference that the Furkan Foundation wanted to organize in Mersin on the day of Miraj was banned by the local administration, and the police attacked the group which gathered for the conference.
The police intervened against university students who protested against the cost of living in Taksim district of Istanbul, saying, "We can't make a living." 26 students were detained.
The website of Active News Agency has been banned from access with the decree of Diyarbakir 3rd Criminal Court of Peace. The websites of the agency, which was blocked for the 5th time in the first 2 months of 2022, were previously censored on January 7, 12, 24, and February 4.
The Izmir 6th Criminal Court of Peace imposed an access ban against the news, which alleged that Izmir Karaburun District Governor Serap Özmen Çetin allowed the agricultural area land she purchased to be opened for construction on the grounds of violation of personal rights. Among the 154 news articles banned from access, there are the news on the Izmir Governorate making a statement on the subject, as well as the website of Republican People's Party Izmir Parliament member Murat Bakan.
In the defense statement sent to the Constitutional Court regarding 4 villagers who were detained and tortured in Gevaş district of Van in 2017, the Van government said that it is not torture if it happened once, defending the torture as simple injury that can be cured with a simple treatment for one time. The government claimed that what happened was not of the nature to be considered as torture and ill treatment.
The Grand Chamber of the European Court of Human Rights rejected the government's objection to the decree, stating the sentence for insulting the president violated freedom of expression. Thus, the decree was finalized. In the application of Vedat Shorli, who was sentenced to 11 months and 20 days in prison for insulting the president for his Facebook post in 2014, the European Court of Human Rights stated that Article 299 of the Turkish Criminal Code, which regulates the charge of insulting the president, is incompatible neither with the European Convention on Human Rights nor with freedom of expression. The court had further stated the state cannot develop a special privilege for the president when it aims to defend the president's reputation. The Supreme Court further demanded that the relevant regulation be amended in accordance with the European Convention on Human Rights and the European Court of Human Rights' jurisprudence on freedom of expression.
Police officer M.A. came to the shop of tailor Osman Gökalp in Diyarbakır in 2018, beat the tailor, and detained him after an argument with the tailor with the allegation that his trousers were lost. Regarding the incident, the Constitutional Court ruled that the prohibition of torture and ill treatment has been violated, emphasizing that the evidence regarding the incident was not collected based on a comprehensive, objective, and impartial analysis in the investigation carried out against the police officers, and that an effective investigation was not conducted. The Constitutional Court decided to reopen the investigation. The Diyarbakır Chief Public Prosecutor's Office issued a decree of non-prosecution in an investigation opened against the police and two separate lawsuits were filed against Gökalp on the grounds of resisting the police and insult following the complaints of police officers.
In the investigation on the case of MB, who stated that he was detained in 2014 as a result of a fight in Fatih district of Istanbul, that he was given electricity and was tortured at the police station, a verdict of non-prosecution was issued for the second time, despite a constitutional court decree on the matter. After MB's criminal complaint, the prosecutor's office decided that there was no place for prosecution, and the High Court ruled that the ban on ill treatment was violated in the file that was transferred to the Constitutional Court, and decided that the prosecutor's office did not collect sufficient evidence and should re-investigate the incident. In the reopened investigation against the three police officers, the Istanbul Chief Public Prosecutor's Office, Public Officer Crimes and Investigation Bureau once again decided that no further evidence has been obtained and that there is no place for prosecution. The prosecutor's office cited the Police Duties and Powers Law as a basis for its decision.
With a circular sent to the governors of 81 provinces, the Ministry of Health demanded the implementation of provisions of the disciplinary legislation regarding the health workers who protested for their personal rights and against low wages. The Turkish Medical Association and medical chambers will be going on strike on March 14 and 15 as a part of the program titled Our Labor, Our Word.
A lawsuit of compensation was filed against journalist Sedat Yilmaz, who prepared the news titled Bayraktar, How Are UAVs Being Sold? To Which Country? On Yeni Yaşam Daily at Bakırköy 14th Civil Court of First Instance. President Erdogan's son-in-law and Bayraktar Unmanned Aerial Vehicles Company's technical director Selçuk Bayraktar claimed that the news attacked his honor and reputation and claimed 150,000 Turkish liras of compensation.
Gelelim bu haftaki adliye mesaisine. Adliyelerde yine yoktu. Ritme göre zıpladıkları için Erdoğan'a hakaretle suçlanan kadınlar mahkemeye çıktı. Erdoğan'a hakaret davasında yapılan savunma da Erdoğan'a hakaretten ceza aldı. Ve daha neler. İşte haftanın ifade özgürlüğü davalarından seçtiklerimiz.
After Boğaziçi University's trustee rector Naci İnci took a precautionary decision against the students protesting him by taking advantage of the protection measures in the law number 6284 on the protection of the family and the prevention of violence against women, 8 students protested him with the banner, "The murdered women are our right. Did you think law number 6284 was yours?" A lawsuit was filed against the 8 protester students, and the first hearing was held at the Istanbul 60th Criminal Court of First Instance on the charge of violating the law on meetings and demonstrations. The trial will continue on May 25.
17 women stood trial on charges of insulting the president and participating in illegal meetings and demonstrations due to the slogans they chanted during the feminist night walk held in Taksim district of Istanbul on March 8, 2021. The case at the Istanbul 10th Criminal Court of First Instance was adjourned to September 23rd.
Journalist Ahmet Kanbal was sentenced to 1 year and 3 months in prison on the charge of targeting those taking part in the fight against terrorism, following the complaint of Gendarmerie Deputy Commander-in-Chief Lieutenant Musa Çitil due to sharing a news story about him on social media. Within the scope of the case at the Aydın 3rd Assize Court, the journalist was prosecuted for sharing a section of an interview with Human Rights Association co-chair Eren Keskin about Musa Çitil.
The latest hearing of the lawsuit filed against journalist Cihan Ölmez on charges of making propaganda for a terrorist organization based on the statements he gave to the press during the curfew imposed in Cizre in 2015 was held at the Diyarbakır 5th Assize Court. The court adjourned the case to June 7th, deciding to wait for the execution of the arrest warrant issued against the journalist.
People's Liberation Party chairman Nurullah Ankut Efe, who was sentenced to 4 years and 8 months in prison for insulting the president because of the books he wrote, was also convicted in the lawsuit filed against him due to his defense in court. The Istanbul 48th Criminal Court of First Instance sentenced Efe to 2 years, 2 months, and 7 days in prison on charges of successively insulting the president.
Journalist Namık Koçak was acquitted in the lawsuit filed against him at the Istanbul 22nd Assize Court for his social media posts. Within the scope of the file, the journalist was charged with making propaganda for a terrorist organization due to his Twitter posts, most of which included his evaluations of the consequences of the coup attempt in 2016.
The latest hearing on the lawsuit filed against journalist Cem Bahtiyar was held at the Balıkesir 3rd Assize Court on charges of making propaganda for a terrorist organization due to his social media posts. The court adjourned the case to June 2 for the prosecutor to prepare its opinion on the merits.
Academic Hifzullah Kutum, who was charged with making propaganda for a terrorist organization on the grounds of social media posts containing the words Kurd and Kurdistan, stood trial once again this week. The hearing was adjourned to March 17th due to the excused absence of the court members of the Elazığ 2nd Assize Court.
The latest hearing of the lawsuit filed against the Rosa Women's Association Board of Director member lawyer Elif Tıranç İpek Ulaş was held at the Diyarbakır 8th Assize Court on the grounds of terrorist organization membership. Presenting its opinion on the merits, the prosecutor's office demanded that Ulaş be sentenced for terrorist organization membership. The hearing was adjourned to June 14.
Previously shut down Özgür Gündem Daily's co-editors-in-chief Hüseyin Aykol, Zanakaya, managing editor İnan Kızılkaya, and Kurdish politician Hatip Dicle stood trial in the latest hearing of the lawsuit filed against them at the Istanbul 2nd Criminal Court of First Instance on the charge of denigrating the state due to the news stories published in different issues of the newspaper. The next hearing was scheduled for June 16th.
Özgürlükçü Demokrasi and Azadiya Velat newspaper distributors Mikhail Tunçdemir and Ferhat Duman stood trial in the latest hearing of the lawsuit filed against them at 1/5th Assize Court on charges of aiding a terrorist organization and making propaganda for a terrorist organization based on the news stories and photos published in newspapers. Next hearing was scheduled for April 28.
Lawyer Ruşen Seydaoğlu was sentenced to 6 years and 3 months in prison in the lawsuit filed against them at the Diyarbakır 8th Assize Court on the charge of terrorist organization membership due to their Democratic Society Congress activities and social media posts. The court further sentenced Seydaoğlu to 1 year and 3 months in prison on the charge of making propaganda for a terrorist organization and deferred the announcement of the verdict.
The latest hearing of the lawsuit filed against Kurdish politician Mehmet Şirin Tunç as part of the investigation against the Democratic Society Congress was held at Diyarbakır 8 Assize Court. H.Ş., who was a witness in the file, explained that he had to sign the statement prepared at the police station under police pressure. The next hearing was scheduled for June 14.
Böylece bir haftayı daha kapatırken Anadolu Edebiyatı'nın büyük ismi Yaşar Kemal'i sonsuzluğa uğurlamamızın üzerinden de 7 yılı ardımızda bıraktık. 1995 yılında Alman Der Spiegel dergisinde yayınlanan bir yazısı nedeniyle yargılanması girişimimizin doğmasına da vesile olan yazarımızı sevgi ve özlemle anıyoruz. Ve bir kez daha onun sesine bir kulak veriyoruz.
Ülkelerin türkülerini yaratanlar, kanunlarını yaratanlardan daha güçlüdür.
Bir yazar insan haklarını canını verecek kadar bağlı olmasa bu çağdaki insan haklarına, o yazar bile değil, insan bile olamaz.
Benim eserlerimi okuyanlar adam öldürememeli, savaşa gidememeli, zulüm edememeli, işkence edememeli.